buddy. This shirt is fully bought and paid for, supporting Ariel Lowen and Dylan and the rest of the squad.
Paid for this shirt.
I tried to buy one before the West semifinal because I wanted to wear one, and they were sold out.
I bought two, but I didn't get them in time. And let me just tell you, I got an XL, and it's an American XL. This is for an obese person. This is not like for a big guy. It's for an obese person. This is
not a European large.
Right. This is not a Euro large. This is very strongman-esque.
So Brian would so Bryson would be pleased with that if he bought that.
Yeah, he'd be right at home. If he got a double XL, he would actually look like he's wearing a bed sheet, probably. So you guys are gonna get me in probably not so rare form in a terrible mood after getting beaten by Jelly Hosty earlier, and that other dude who looked metrosexual.
Oh, did another guy beat you? I just saw the.
He looked like a Ken doll. Yeah, he looked like a Ken doll that was celebrating this month of June. And that's no knock on him. He was very attractive. I told him next time you should make yourself look a little uglier before you come on the show. Ridiculous.
It's one thing to get beat by someone fitter than you, or at least in that particular workout. It's another to have someone better looking than you at the same time.
Yeah, and also beat me. So that happened. We're going to talk about this. JR has been edging this topic for the past like 6 months. He's like, dude, we got to do a show on movements, competition versus training.
Have I?
Yeah, dude. This is like this.
Or did I just text you this morning and say, hey, we should do a show
texted me this morning, but you've been texting me this exact topic for like 6 months. Don't tell me I'm wrong. You have been, bro. You've been waiting for this day. So JR's probably got it all figured out. Chase and him are going to have a great discussion. And if you guys need a swear word every 30 or 45 seconds, that's what I'm here for. So,
and what Taylor's going to do is give his opinion, and me and Chase are wrong regardless of if we agree or not.
Hey, I'm used to that.
Wow. So movements, competition versus training. What is appropriate to program for a competition? What's not appropriate to program for a competition? What are movements that are only should be performed or should be relegated only to your training? I don't know how I feel about this. You've thought deeply on this. I have not.
I think there's movements that you are very polarizing, that you're either a hard yes or a hard no,
right.
But until they get brought up, you probably hadn't thought about them.
I will say this. Before we start this conversation, I feel like I err on the side of anything goes in competition rather than not. I err on the side of if you do it during training, that's a fine line. Functional movements that are executed at high intensity, I err on the side of you should put it in competition. But I'm not saying a Bulgarian split squat should be programmed in competition.
Yeah, that's
right. Like not a bicep curl, but like a compound functional movement. All right. So JR, you lead the way. Lead from the front, brother.
Let's start with the one that we've only really seen once in competition, but based on a recent post that I saw, is going to try to be replicated by the Monster Games. I believe I saw Chris Ibarra and Olivia Kerstetter were testing out this workout, and it is with an air rifle. So let's start with shooting. So should shooting, whether it's archery, whether it's like an air rifle like Rogue did, should shooting, we can go down the rabbit hole of general physical skills with accuracy and blah, blah, blah. Should shooting at something for penalties, not for penalties, for a time deduction or add-on, should shooting or some kind of target be in a competition for that's called CrossFit, or that we would just say is CrossFit? Like I know Tactical Games is its own thing. Let's leave that out. But let's just say for a CrossFit competition at the games, or, at a big competition like Rogue, how do you guys feel about that?
I think wrestling one-on-one is way more functional and cooler than fucking shooting a BB gun, dude. Let me just say this. I love shooting. I used to have 2 AR-15s, Daniel Defense. One was 300 blackout, one was 5.56. I only sold them because I never shot, and I've killed a ton of wild pigs with those. I love to shoot.
You got rid of them?
Yeah. This was, I know, not a good decision.
Like hurting for drug money, or what was it?
And I'm rich now, dude. So I was like, trust me, I'm like looking at, I'm on fucking Palmetto State Armory for like an hour a day right now, just drooling. I'm thinking I'm gonna get a 1911. I've always wanted a really nice 1911, but I still have firearms. I just got rid of those too because I never used them, and I had like probably 7 or 8 grand wrapped up in them. Trigicon sight, an aim point sight. Anyways,
go to cheaperthandirt.com.
that's a great website. Yeah, you know who I miss? Sorry, JR. The YouTuber Nut and Fancy. I used to watch Nut and Fancy. He's like a gun, gear, knives reviewer. I used to just watch him for like, dude, and kind of a weird guy. But anyways, if you want to like watch somebody just play with expensive shit that can kill people, go to his YouTube. I love shooting. I don't think it's functional. I think having a bucket of stones the exact same size and shape and weight that you pick out of a bucket and throw at a target, like throwing a actual fucking rock, I think that would be a better test of physical fitness than shooting a gun. Dude, I'm just saying, like, think about as primitive as it gets, throwing a stone at a little bunny rabbit and killing that bunny, dude. I mean, guns are just so new and it's nothing physical about it other than squeezing your finger and lowering your heart rate.
Chase, did you call that Rogue Invitational?
No, that was Sean and Bill.
Okay. Do you remember that event specifically?
Oh yeah. I remember when it was programmed. I remember when it came out. I remember the reactions to it. And when it comes to testing accuracy, I think sometimes events will focus too much on like the scientific definition of it and not what the accuracy should be displayed within a functional movement, as Taylor was talking about earlier, right? I want to see accuracy displayed in a snatch or accuracy displayed in, if you want to get cute, which I think shooting is a cute movement to put in competition, then something like a flying pull-up bar or, monkey bars, maybe floating wall ball targets where we've talked about on Get With The Programming is I would love to see one day a 5-level wall ball target that you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 every round.
That would be so cool. Okay.
Double unders are an accurate, like the accuracy component in the 10 general physical skills, I think should be displayed within the movements that you're doing, not a specific movement to test accuracy itself. So handstand walks and obstacles are a test of accuracy. The parallel bars when you're walking across, the pivot on the raised parallel bars, that's an accuracy component. And to get very specific, like I did at an event one time that had cornhole at the end of every round. Was it fun? Yes. If we want to do something local, something new, something fresh, okay. Where it turns into where I question it when it's to say qualify for something major or there's a massive prize at the prize purse. And like, for example, this type of accuracy testing has no bearing on fitness. Zero. Unless it's physically demanding, right? Yeah. Unless it's physically demanding, I don't think it should be in a test to find the fittest person at whatever competition you do. So for example, it's like, say, this is a bad example, but say Rich was bad at shooting and this is 2013 and they're shooting at the CrossFit Games, or Matt or Tia in peak level and they lose the CrossFit Games. Was that an appropriate way to test accuracy in finding the fittest person blank wherever? So that's where I think sometimes you'll see programmers try something new, maybe with good intention of, let's put accuracy in there. And I think accuracy, like coordination or balance on the more of the skill parts of the 10 general physical skills, those things are pieces of the puzzle. Whereas we can test power and we can test strength and we can test speed on one-offs. Those neurological adaptations, I think, are components of functional movements, not necessarily should be isolated as a test.
Hickok 45, another great gun and gear reviewer. What modality would shooting fall into? It would fall into the Republican modality. And everyone else can kick rocks. So I agree.
Know how JR keeps a straight face.
He didn't. He laughed for that one, dude. I got a little giggle. He had to look down into the left. That was a down into the left laugh.
That is JR laughing out loud.
I honestly, for a CrossFit competition, as long as the goal of the competition isn't qualifying to quarterfinals, semifinals of the games, I think the way Rogue tested it was great because it was an Olympic event. it was the biathlon, right? The ski shoot. Like I think that was cool.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Right. I enjoyed that. People go back to the 2011 softball throw. And I would say of all the accuracy tests I've seen, that is actually the best one, even though.
But it wasn't accuracy. It was just distance.
No,
you had to keep it within your lane though.
But how wide were the lanes?
Like maybe 10 yards.
So for anyone who's ever thrown a ball,
when you're throwing 100 feet plus, there's a major accuracy component. Because if you're 5 degrees off this way, and that's why I didn't like the rock thing, right? Or a cornhole. If I'm 5 degrees off in cornhole, I'm still making it in. If I'm shooting free throws, I'm still making it from the distance. If I'm throwing 150 to 200 feet away, that is a massive accuracy component, as well as the display of, say, power, right?
Yeah, my thoughts on it are, if you're gonna, I really like people who take risks, and I like some innovation. So people want to take a chance and try to do something that other people are maybe too afraid to do, or that no one's tried to do before. I'm already going to kind of give them a thumbs up for that. And then if it hits, great. If it falls apart, hey, probably shouldn't have done it. Like I would say, using the, you could just call it the adaptive rope, right, in Madrid.
Yeah. Oh, the mono rope.
Using the mono rope, right? Like that was just a, hey, let's do this because no one else has done it before. And some people liked it, some people didn't, but I can commend the attempt. So likewise, when I talked to one of the people involved with Monsters Games, they said, we released that we were doing it 3 months ago, and we told them what gun we were using, and we gave 2 of them away. And I think that's the way to do it, because I'm sure that there's some sponsorship or partnership there. You're giving the athletes that are going to qualify plenty of time to get the thing that they need. Just like, hey, you need to make sure you have a drag rope to bring with you. We're not going to supply them. So if you don't have a drag rope for the competition in October, make sure you get one. I think giving a heads up is always a plus. But yeah, so kind of staying there, let's talk about throwing. We know it's in the pyramid. We know it's with weightlifting. We've seen it done a couple times. They did the med ball GHD toss, right? Like for distance. They did the softball toss for distance and accuracy, you could say. What place does throwing have? Do you think they could do something like that? We're not going to call a wall ball shot a throw. I think that's a little too much of a stretch. But like, if they said, hey, Rogue makes this thing, it's going to kind of be like a hammer throw. We're going to do it for distance. Hey, we're going to throw a javelin, or it can be things that are actually already like an Olympic sport, or like the head of a dumbbell. We're just going to use it as a shot put, and we're going to see who can throw it the farthest. Any kind of throwing, though. How do you guys feel about throwing?
I think it would be cool if an event, again, cool, not appropriate for maybe testing the fittest on earth, but if an event like Rogue in Scotland did a test where you had maybe 7 to 10 different implements, all of them were like, and each of the field gets 3 attempts at each implement, and they're all scored equally for one 100-point test. It's like you throw a stone here, you throw the sandbag over the log, strongman test here, you do a shot put on the next, whatever. All testing an element of throwing, all testing maybe some degree of accuracy, some testing accuracy more, strength, power, output more than others, but you kind of combine them into one global throwing accuracy power test. I think that would be cool.
I would like a test, and I think this is actually appropriate if we're, say, trying to find the fittest, is that you give someone it's a lot like, it's funny as I'm talking about events that I usually crap on, but like the med ball tossed, like there's a way to do that where it actually is a better display, because it was tough. Like they couldn't really measure the distance. It was supposed to be accurate, but it wasn't, because the balls just went everywhere, because some of them are uneven weighted. But what I love, say, if you pull from the strongman area, like the keg toss for height, right? Mm-hmm. That I actually think is a great way to display throwing that has, again, I go back to the accuracy isolation. It is part of a bigger test of speed, power, and strength when you throw vertically. Even if you throw horizontally, say it's like, hey, here are 5 different weighted bags or like I said, or a shot, right? And it's going to be total distance combined for the 5 shots is your score. So it's a light one, it's a moderate, and it gets to a heavy one, and we just total your distance that you threw. Something I like that happened in the Filthy 150, where it was
sandbag
toss over
Yep.
for a distance. There was a really old school workout back in the day where they went to a football field, and I think they were doing thrusters, but then it was like thruster throws with barbells.
It was
demolished the field.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? Like there are ways to
San Francisco CrossFit has a video called "Throwing Grace," and Adrian Bosman is in the video.
Yeah,
it's pretty
even
cool.
a high logs that they had muss-up logs. It was that last year where the heights got higher and the bags got heavier, and like there's elements of that versus say like a softball throw where there's not as much focus on fitness. And I think a cool question I'd love y'all to brainstorm on this is, we talked about accuracy and throwing. What are some ideas you guys would have to maybe make an event that would do that? And I was trying to get like I was thinking cornhole. I was like, man, what if you had like 50-pound med balls and a tire 20 feet away? And it was like, how many can you get in 3 minutes? But you have to squat throw, right? Like there are ways to make this happen that's still a little gimmicky, because it's like you could be the strongest thrower, but if you don't have accuracy within that, what some ideas you guys would have to come up with?
Taylor, you want to address that real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Taylor Smith has been murdering the comment section asking for a Kill Taylor shirt. They finally gave $9.99, so I have to address it. They're not for sale yet. When they do become available, don't worry, we will shout it from the rooftops. I like the idea of a 50-pound med ball toss or a D-ball toss into a tire. I think that's cool. And don't even make them, I say don't make them do any variation, dude. I would be granny tossing. I would be granny shooting every single one.
Just anyway how.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm a big fan of not
kettlebell
putting constraints on certain things. Yeah.
Right.
So this is something. I mean, I think we did the games prediction. Of course, I went out on way far like limbs to try to figure some weird stuff out that they could do. But especially since they're doing Rogue in Scotland, I think about a couple different styles. Think about an elimination style event, and they have we brought them up, right? They're like a sandbag with a handle attached to them, and they basically look like a kettlebell, and you basically do like throws up and over something with it, right? You can fill them with different weights. What if you had elimination style where there were like 3 of those sandbags with the handles and 3 different heights?
The way they did it at the games with the sandbag over the yoke?
Right. So you run to it in between the legs. It's basically just a kettlebell swing, right? Let's just call it what it is. Like for us, throw it over, run to the next one, throw it over, run to the next one, throw it over. And by the end, it's heavy enough or it's tall enough to where some people fail.
Yeah.
So you have
it's
that
like
style of event.
Pillars at Strongman. Right?
Yeah, I think they could do that. And I think they could do something like you said, like a ladder. Like they could just say, hey, the height is going to stay the same. The bag's going to keep getting heavier. We're just going to add a bag to the huge sandbag, or the weight is going to stay at 70 pounds, but we're going to keep going higher and higher until there's 2 people left. Like that would be super fun to watch. And it would not break the athletes down at all, but it would be really exerting because it's like a snatch. It's super fast.
Me and Bryson talked about doing this. Maybe it was even 2 days ago, doing sandbags over the pull-up bar, the same pull-up bar that you would use for a burpee pull-up in the open. So as long as you can walk underneath it, thumbs touching your fingertips, don't hit the bar, like a sandbag over the bar and burpee pull-up workout we were planning on doing sometime this week. I think that, we'll see how it goes. I've done it before. It's been a long time, but I think that would be.
So we set the yokes to 6 feet, and we did like 100-pound and 70-pound, where you basically, had to get it to your shoulder and shot put it.
Yeah,
dude, it is awesome. Devastating for anyone short though. Like it's almost impossible for them to do it.
Okay, you guys talk for a second. I have to pee so badly. I'm sorry.
Do you think they could take a 50-pound? I think a 50-pound, 14-inch diameter D ball to what you're saying, whether they do it to a circular target or they just are like, hey, you have let's just say Taylor, like, hey, you have a pull-up bar that's 6 feet off the ground, or say it's 8 feet off the ground. You got to do 20. You got to do 20 ball over the bar. So you can throw it granny style over your shoulder, like you would do I think the Army did like a standing throw where you have to do that with like a 30-pound
like
ball.
over
Right. So you do it like
that. I did a
shot
competition
put
that
it.
had that in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I do think that there are some places you could probably place throwing and it be fun, but I also acknowledge that if Rogue does it and it looks really cool with Zeus, they can get away with things that maybe if other people do, they just get.
Well, that's a great point, because think how big Zeus is and how many things you could put along the front face of it. It's like something is like, hey, not only is it, there's an 8-foot bar, a 10-foot bar, a 12-foot bar, and you have to throw it over the 8-foot, over the 10-foot, over the 12-foot. But if you throw it too high, it's going to hit the 12-foot one, or it's going to hit the 10-foot one. Like, here's the thing. I think the point here is like, there are ways you can actually test accuracy and test throwing, and it still be a good test of fitness along the way, other than just a skill based with no actual fatigue element to that. I think that's the line I draw as far as whether I personally think it should or shouldn't be in competition. If there's no element of a physical exertion that's going to fatigue someone into being poor at it, other than the running they do to get there, I would like it. I think you can actually.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. To shift, one thing that I've always wanted to see more of is kind of like a Broken Skull Ranch style, physical 100 style, like 1v1 physical challenge. Maybe
you need Bill on the show for this one.
I don't like wrestling, but I think if you had a 8-foot rope lying down in the sand, there's a center line on the rope. You guys start equal distances away. 3, 2, 1, go. Sprint to the rope. Whoever pulls the other person across the line first wins. Dude, I just think that would be so fucking entertaining to watch. It is a challenge, because depending on your opponent or competitor, like one person has an easier event than another, and weight does play a point. And I was trying to think about how it would make sense to score something like that. And I thought, okay, if you win your heat 1v1, your score is ranked amongst the other winners on how long it took you. Obviously, the faster you were, the better you did. If you lost your heat, your score against the other losers would be how long you were able to fight off your opponent. And the people who had the longest time were better. I don't know. I would like to see that.
Well, remember beach flags in that
Australian
South African?
competition. Was it Australian? I thought it was Australian.
No, I think it was Africa. Was it Australia?
I thought it was one of the 2 Australian competitions. I could be wrong.
It might have been. No, I think it was in Australia, like the Down Under Championship.
And that was with what do they do in that competition?
They basically line you up 10 yards from a row of PVC pipe pegs. And I think it was more of either you were the last one there, or they do it like musical chair style. So there's 9 pegs and 10 athletes.
Oh, wow. That's sick. Like something like that, I want to see again.
Do you remember how? I don't remember watching it. I don't know why I didn't watch it this year. I think it was the sanctionals year. Did the tug of war go over well or not at Rogue?
Oh, dude, it actually went over awesome.
It was sick.
And it was the same year as the rifle. Yeah. Again, I was like, I don't know about this but it ended up being actually pretty fantastic for teams. I think individuals not as much. What about something? I mean, have you guys seen this as kind of a joke warm-up thing, but they put 2 people on an echo bikes and then they put a foam roller in the middle and they battle it out to put the foam roller to the other bike? Like a way to standardize something like that would be pretty sweet.
I like any of those, but I also like the idea of like that peg game, but maybe it's a medicine ball or a sandbag and it's in the center and you both start 15 yards away, sprint, whoever takes it back to their side. Like, I mean, yeah, there's an element of, physical, one-on-one.
You want contact.
I want some fucking contact for sure, dude. Yeah. I just think it would be super cool. About as functional as it gets. I mean, you're talking about as functional as, what do people train for life for? I mean, that's obviously to avoid chronic disease and to be able to get up off the couch and get up when you fall down. But in a sense of being physically prepared for anything, that's like the thing. Every guy's like, oh, if he attacks me, I'll fuck him up.
Yeah, but like, what's the counterpart to that has said a lot about what is one of the most basic principles that you should be able to do in fitness, and that's to run and that's to fight. And
Right.
that's also known as the two most basic instincts every person has, every animal on the planet is fight or flight.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, this is definitely a tangent from Taylor's question, but I think the Echo Bike foam roller thing just got me thinking about this. At the games only, and I want to preface that, at the games, when there's going to be at least 12 events, do you think that they could do something like for a power output test, put every single athlete, you could probably do it in 2 heats, two heats of 20, take whatever machine you want and just tell them, hey, you give them a power wattage number and just say, hey, whoever can hold above this for the longest wins, and that's it. So
I love that.
So you're just like 3, 2, 1, go, and then let's just say the number is 500 watts on the Echo Bike. As soon as you hit 500, let's just say, hey, you have 5 seconds to get there, and as soon as you're there, the judge watches the screen. The second they see a 4 on the screen, that's your time, and we just see who can hold it the longest. It can be on whatever machine you want. But do you think that would be a cool? Like, I think that would be it would be.
They can
would it be fun to watch? Probably not. But yeah, if they had a screen where you could see Hoppers at 5:30, Adlers at 5:40, so and so's at 5:10, so and so's at they're dropping off.
I think they should do that at a track with a 400-meter split time. That way you can see everyone running at a particular
that's a hell of a
pace.
beep test.
140, you make them run up. Fuck, that's probably too slow. A 130 or a 132 400 for men is the beep. A 130.
I mean, a 130 is not.
I would say
that's a 6-minute mile after 4 rounds.
Right. And that's what I mean. You don't want it to be. You don't want it to be more than 1.5 miles or 2 miles of running for these guys, maybe. And then on the last round, maybe on the 6th round, it's whoever finishes first wins. I think that would be sick.
Bro.
Yeah.
Dude, okay.
Katie Henniger, fire whoever you got.
8 laps on the track, max, right? 130 pace, keep, and then at the 7th lap, it's the race to the finish. So maybe you can run a 12-minute 2 mile, which is
there are going to be guys who fail.
One I've always wanted to see, and I called it King of the Hill, is that you get all 40 athletes, men out there in a rack with 225 on the bar. The bar gets unracked on your back, and there's a beep every 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Squat.
Wow.
Beep, squat. You can't squat before. You got to squat at least before the next 10-second beep. It's sitting there holding the weight the whole time, but it's a square just like they did for semifinals this year for event number 1. Like 10, 10, and 10, all just looking at each other. Beep.
You could even make it a 135 overhead squat. 135, 95. That would be so savage.
And then it's
right
just
to that
bar
point,
smash.
Dude,
we saw Dave's weekend review. He had the tape line of a lane in blue tape of what
it's a big box.
A box is going to be like at Dickies. Think about just doing a death by grace at 225. And to your point, you just have a bunch of these squares. You have 225, and every 10 seconds, you have to do a clean and jerk. And you just go, and it's a true death by, and you just go until there's only one person left that's still going. Would that be counter to, I know you've talked about this, I'll mention this, is like AMRAPs in competition, especially at the game, where it's like, hey, you actually won, but you did more, like the top 5 end up doing 15 to 20 more squats at 225 or overhead squats. And it actually ends up being a detriment to be successful in that one. I think anything like that needs to be done as like a final, right? Or it needs to be done where the wear and tear isn't like, for instance, a sled push for distance, and you have someone that pushes 100 feet longer than someone who pushes 50. Or like in the first thing, you're on a machine. Like if you can hold a pace on a machine for 40 seconds longer than the other guy, that's not going to beat you up that much for the next day. I think another element you could play with in an event like that is a sliding scale for scoring.
so that you
Okay.
really punish athletes who do poorly and try to game it, and you really reward the athletes relative to the effort that they put. So an athlete that's just like, fuck it, I'm not going to try, they get negative points, maybe even, and a person who just destroys
Like you can
everyone.
get more than 100.
Right. I think that would
So,
be appropriate.
Where's Tyler? We need a Z score.
Yeah. I think that's an appropriate place to implement that style of scoring. Maybe nowhere else, but that would be cool and would make sense.
I
Dude.
actually like that, using a performance-based scoring with niche ideas that we're talking about right now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. So we talked about strongman stuff. We've talked about some monostructural stuff. We've talked about some physicality. Let's go to gymnastics, because I think
Climbing.
these are the ones that get argued more than anything.
Climbing should be at the games 100%. I don't think it's any more skill based than, I mean, talk about shooting. If I'm at the games, dude, I don't know. I just think climbing, but not in a traditional rock climbing way. Maybe you'll have to find an element or a way to test it. It's not so niche to climbers, just like we don't go swim and do a 500-yard time trial or a 50-yard time trial, because the swimmers would absolutely obliterate everyone. But find a way to implement a climbing course, a short bouldering course that's the same for every athlete. You could set it up on a fucking high wall. You set up footholds and handholds on a high wall that's the same for everyone, and put it in a workout. 3 climbs over the wall, something else. 2 climbs over the wall, something else. I think that would be sick.
I think I've definitely seen it at Justin's gym at his house, and I think I pulled it up with Sevon when I did my prediction show for the games last year. Rogue makes these red holds that can go on the rig. So it would have to be done horizontally, and the event in Egypt did it a couple years ago where they did a horizontal pegboard, which I thought was pretty cool. So let's just say, to your point, they try to do that, but everything is across, Taylor. So they go like 21 thrusters, 1, 2, 3 of going across these holds. So you got to go 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, and then 15, 2 across, and then 9, 1 time across. Say the lane is 10 feet wide, so it's about 10 feet of holds, but they're all exactly the same. I think that's the issue, right? Could they do at least 10 athletes with a wall that has the holds in the exact same spot? And how high can it be to where it's not dangerous anymore?
Pegboard height. You make a pegboard, dude. Think about the O Course 2017, O Course 20. Was it Rescue Randy? Was that 18?
Yeah.
Some of those higher walls, the 2017 O Course, like they're not low. And dude, we have these massive fucking red pads that we use for pegboards and rope climbs at the games. 100% you should put those in there. And dude, I don't know. I think
they actually have something temporary. So I've always wanted to see a rock wall elimination style bracket.
Dude,
and the idea that I was looking at is like I was watching Sean Woodland call rock. I mean, it's going to be in the Olympics this year. Speed climb, right? You can get they make these for like kids' birthday parties, but it's a 4-sided rock wall column that has cables that just hook to a harness, and if you fall, it just lowers you down gently.
Right.
And it's just all 4, and it's a race to a buzzer. It's the same course. They're easy to grab handholds. So like, I don't want handholds that are specifically where like Laurel Horvath's going to smash everybody because she knows how to grip a rock like this.
Right.
It's just here, right?
Big ass fucking titty handholds.
Yeah. The most basic handhold foothold setup, but it's just like, again, that is a speed accuracy component. If you're racing up a rock wall, especially hand-eye, hand-foot while racing, and you can do a round robin like that, and you can rent it for $500 for a day.
Right.
Do you think they would ever fuck around with like increased diameter pegs, like fat grip pegs for pegboards? That seems
like
maybe
when they've done it with the ropes.
Yeah, they've done it with rope climbs.
I think we'll see. Chase has talked about it before, especially when they did the deep dive in the journal. People have trained it before, getting ready for Rogue, using a yoke for like the bar muscle ups.
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll see a rotating or a thick pull-up bar, like pull-up bar, to just do whatever with regular pull-ups, toes to bar, whatever, before they use like a thick peg. I think that it's more likely that they say, okay, you're doing your pull-ups, but you're doing them on the top of this yoke, which is way too wide for you to do big unbroken bar.
Would be so awesome. Not a fat bar, a rotating bar.
I'm not as sold on it.
It's a wrinkle.
All right. So
And at the games, when it's 1 of 15 events, I don't see that being like.
But what are you doing on it?
Pull-ups.
Just kipping pull-ups?
What we called rotating Fran, right? You got like an axle bar for the thrusters at 115 and 85, or make it 135 and 95, and then in rotating bar pull-ups. Just
the only reason I don't like that is because as a viewer, what I'm relying on, or what I'm depending on, is the announcers being able to create excitement over something that I can't necessarily see. Like seeing the difference between a static pull-up bar and one that's spinning a little bit is so hard as a viewer, especially someone who's not super familiar with CrossFit. Like I would look at it and be like, wow, what they're doing is crazy. That's hard as fuck. But my mom watching would be like, oh, it just looks like Fran, but they're breaking the pull-ups up now.
why do they suck? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
You can have like camera angles on the bar and watch their hands grip and then slide underneath immediately.
They would fuck that up. You can't depend on those fucking camera guys.
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
No, we can't do that at this point.
All right. So strict stuff. Let's go to strict, because that's something that gets argued about a lot. Let's just put these out there. Strict pull-ups, any variation. L pull-up, that was supposed to be the pullovers last year at the games. We already know that. They decided not to do it. Yes, they decided not to do it because they couldn't decide on a standard.
Oh my God.
Strict ring muscle ups. Let's just say strict pulling in general. Do you think it should only be used in training, or do you think it can be used in competition? We're not talking about legless rope climb.
They 100%. I wish that event would have been L pull-ups. That's so cool. Find a way to standardize it. Right.
Yes. I just don't think there's a single standard that will be upheld across 40 athletes and judges in any competition you do. I mean, we saw them do it at Wadapalooza, and look how that went. But I would love to, I just think this is actually a great question. Is I'm in camp, no, for competition, but if you're not doing that in your training, like you are totally missing the boat on the adaptation you can get from things like that.
And that goes with strict ring muscle up too. You think it should not be in competition?
Same. Yeah. Same. I mean,
Taylor.
I think the L pull-up, you could standardize it like this. You jump up to the pull-up bar and establish the hang position. Everything's an extension. Then you establish your L position. Heels have to be above the crease of the hip, or heels have to be above the bottom of your glute. Whatever standard you want to go with there, that's easy to see as a judge. And in the bottom position, your elbows have to be extended and your shoulders have to be an extension. So your head's through. Once you establish the L position, you can begin your first L pull-up rep, and your heels have to stay above that line for the duration of the rep. When you come back down and you reach extension, you can go into your next rep. But if you decide to break, you have to jump up, establish a hang, then establish an L position. Your judge has to say go. Just like when you perform an Olympic lift, when you finish it overhead, your judge says good at the games. I think it could be done, especially at the games when you, for the most part, do have an all-star team of judges. I don't know. I would like them to find a way to do that.
I'm not saying I wouldn't like it, but I'm always wary in competition programming any movement where it's totally dependent on how the judge sees it. Not like an air squat or a thruster. Like that is more just like them managing this, but like in that scenario, the judge is controlling what you do, and depending on how they see it, they are allowing you to progress from the hang, from the L sit, and then hopefully that you get to the bottom. They don't think your toes dip too. Like the judge is basically controlling the speed and execution of that entire movement. And I try to stay away from movements like that in competition where people are racing as fast as they can. I would, again,
I'm good with strict pull-ups only if they're weighted. And I don't think weighted pull-ups are used enough. So I mean, like I don't really like the hold a dumbbell in between your feet, or squeeze a dumbbell in between your thighs or whatever, and take it over there and do dumbbell snatches with it. But I think that something like they did in the skills, something like they did for the age groups, where they did like a max front squat, max cow bike erg, and then a weighted pull up. I think weighted pulling in a strict form is the way they need to do strict. I would love for them to bring back strict ring muscle ups and be able to do it, because I think it is a huge separator, especially in a games field. But what I think you're more likely to see, and what I will predict that they will try to do, since every Friday night at every new venue they've done some variation of Amanda, is I think since last year they used the seated L ring muscle up strict to get into the support position, I could see individuals doing that this year.
Like
This
low, oh, go ahead.
And I think that takes away a lot of the judging part of it.
this at first seemed like sarcasm, but it's not. And let me just finish with this. We have issues every time we squat in competition of judges calling no reps on good reps and judges not seeing depth at fucking all. So if we're going to allow hip crease below the knee as that is level of subjectivity and where the judge stands to judge that, I don't see heel above the butt as any different. I don't know. I mean, the air squat or the squat is more common, sure, but your ability to see those positions to me is not any harder on an L pull-up, especially with how slow it is.
And I think that standard that you mentioned, it could just be simply that, and you don't have to discuss anything else with the legs. The legs don't have to be an extension. They can be tucked. It doesn't matter. Your knees can be bent. As long as your heels stay above your butt, you're good. If they drop below, you're not good. Push-ups.
Push-ups.
Cindy out.
Yeah.
What about, let's just say at the games this year, they've done Murph a couple times. Let's say Go Ruck's a big sponsor. Let's say they do a ruck workout. And I think with a ruck, a push-up is a lot better to judge than that space between the vest. Right. Yeah. So if they did a hand release with a ruck to where all you're looking at is your chest on the ground. You're not having to look and see if the vest is on the ground or if it's clanking or not. In push-ups at the games, push-ups, any kind, ring push-up, regular push-up, hand release push-up. Do you think push-up should be in competition?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they should be. I want them to be. I think they could be. I think they should be.
Yeah.
I think they
should be.
Right.
Like, I think we're all in agreement there, but when you put it in a competition for racing, especially at the games or a high level competition, it's just messy. Like, maybe push-ups. Push-ups are actually one of the best exercises you can do for upper body strength, stamina, and endurance. But like, you put that in a competition and it just becomes a total disaster.
Maybe it's maybe you program them in a format where the speed is less important than the stamina. So maybe a death by push-up format, potentially. I mean, that the problem is really the true problem is we need trained and consistent judging, like professional judging. Not my job is seminar staff or my job is fucking teaching at school, but on the weekends I fly to Miami and I fly to Crash and I fly to these competitions to judge. What we need is professional judging, and we're just not there yet. We don't have the money for it yet. But to me right now, in terms of increasing the athlete experience or improving the athlete experience and creating consistency across competitions, trust in the competitive process, knowing that what you're doing, as long as it is to standard, is right, knowing that if your competitor is not moving to standard, you don't have to worry about that. That's the biggest thing missing right now in semifinals, quarterfinals, open games. So if we had trained professional judges, I would trust a push-up. I mean, if a trained eye as a trainer, I can look and see if this fucking asshole is his hips and shoulders are moving together, or if he's just touching the tip of his dick to the ground and freaking, you know what I mean, doing the worm.
Or just the elbow hinge at the hip press out that we see on like ring dips.
Right.
Perfect. There we go. There's my next one. Dips. Any kind, ring or bar. Dips.
At semifinals the other year when they were programmed, I watched more than 15 athletes just in the women's field absolutely obliterate the standard, like just completely piss all over it, defecate all over the standard, 3 inches between shoulder and the top of the ring. Judges not calling it anywhere. I love dips in competition. Again, it's a judging issue.
Well, when they brought the straps out at regionals, I thought was the best thing they ever did for the ring dip.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And so there's 3 things to look for: is that the ring must touch the shoulder at the bottom. The hips must descend below the rings. right? Instead of the hinge. Like the hinge thing is where people keep their hips at ring level and they just hinge back up and down. The hips must descend below, contact must be made, and then hit the strap at the top. I thought that was one of the best things they did in competition. I heard very, very little blowback or complaining about that. Maybe just normal, like there will always be something in there. It's that they're human beings. We're calling balls and strikes on a competition field. I get it.
Right.
But there are ways to manage that. If you can do that for a push-up, right? And if you can do it, like you put someone in just like a leveled plate, it's like, hey, your chest must hit this button on the bottom and the top at here. And unless you're claustrophobic and you're doing something like that. But I think ring dips like that are much easier to do, not strict, right? That's a thing. That's another thing. Unless, again, JR, what I like you said about weighted is that can go for any movement, especially with the barbell. This light thrusters in competition versus heavy thrusters in competition. The adding the weight to slow people down versus the race being the range of motion and the speed at which you can blur the lines of range of motion in the standards. I think in competition, minimizing that with weight is a good way to go.
Right. Obviously, Elizabeth Elevated was the first time that we had kind of seen like the dips used on bars and not on rings. And then, of course, there's a trickle down. Everyone starts using them. Taylor did ring dips in this past year's Charlotte Classic. I did parallel bar dips in the competition he did at Crescendo. Wadapalooza did P-bar dips on those shortened P-bars. Do you think dips with bars is just a better way to go? And you just say, hey, the standard is shoulder below elbow, lockout at the top, start at the top, end at the top, however you get there in the middle. Because then we start getting to, do hips need to descend? Can you hinge at the waist? Then we're getting into GHD. What's happening in the middle? Is it not just pad to floor to pad, or is it no, where your hips are matters? Or if it's V up, if your knees bend during the process, it's not hands on the ground, feet on the ground, and then hands to the toes. That's where I'm going with the dip. Do you think it's better to just do, hey, the standard is just shoulder below elbow, lockout at the top, and that's the standard? However you get there, I don't care.
Any way you don't have to dictate how the movement is executed is a really important thing to think about when programming movements in competition at all, right? So like you said, the V-up. The V-up had, okay, knees must be straight, feet together. It was dictating how the movement was actually executed. When you look at a toes to bar, it's heels behind, toes touch the bar. How you get it done really is irrelevant. If you want to do it with bent arms and bent knees, by all means, go for it. But when you get into the realm of dictating how a movement is supposed to be done, I think that's where you add a much more unnecessary component to judging.
Taylor, were you happy with the way that the dips went? And if you were not, would you have changed anything about the standard?
Some people, the only thing I was unpleased with was some people who were doing good reps got called for no reps. But no one who was doing bad reps got away with them. Or no one that I saw. And I was hammering people. And so were our judges, which was nice.
Strict press and not in the CrossFit total. So let's say you're all right. So because
no,
that movement does not produce power, and that's a fine line with like, well, what's the definition of functional movement? Okay, well, some movements aren't functional. Okay, what's this? How are they described as functional? You know, force, distance, time, all that stuff. But to me, like in a Metcon, where a strict handstand push-up is welcomed, where a deficit strict handstand push-up is welcomed, anyone that would try to make someone do a strict press for a time or reps workout would get completely obliterated.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
And so this is the last one, at least that I have, and it is very like weird, but I have thought about it before and I've never found it on main site. And I'm curious of your thoughts because I want you to start by thinking about a hang clean. And Taylor, you have 135 on the bar and you have to do hang cleans and you have to do 30 per time. You're going to do power or muscle clean. But if I tell you it's hang squat clean, you're like, okay, cool. It's hang squat clean. I got to pull under it. Fine. Do you think a squat jerk could ever be programmed for reps in a competition? So shoulder to overhead. It's not a strict press. It's not a push press. It's not a push jerk. It's a squat jerk, and it's 135. and it's testing for all the people that like to say, well, look what a pistol tests. It tests mobility, it tests flexibility, it tests some of these physical skills. A squat jerk would do exactly that. Is that just too gimmicky, or could a squat jerk, just like, well, yeah, I know you can push jerk it, but I want you to squat it, just like a hang squat clean, could that be a viable competition movement?
Are you
and does it
dictating
have-
the grip?
Well, it's front
no,
rack, so it's hard to go too wide.
Yeah, let's just say it's got to be the front rack, so you can do
Not
as
at
wide as you want.
135.
Yeah, and what if it's 185? Whatever. I'm just
Sure.
I am really like digging now. Like, is that's never, to my knowledge, has never been programmed in competition. But why hasn't it been? Because it's just making you drop lower under the bar, just like I'm making you squat. I mean, I would never do it, but yeah.
How do you do it? I'm just trying to visualize what it looks like, and to me, the argument as to why they've never done it is because it would look stupid.
Yeah, I agree. It's like way too many hip opening, hip closing.
Right.
Like, people don't even stand up hang movements all the way at the top as it is, much less if they were coming out of the bottom of the squat. So, what about kettlebell swings, whether they're Russian or American? Do you think they should just never be in a competition? Taylor, I know, feels pretty strongly about that.
Well, what do you know?
You've
I
always
love
said,
kettlebell swings.
I was going to say, Taylor's always said, well, if you can judge arms cover ears on another overhead movement, why can't you do it with your arms?
The argument is like, if you can judge kipping, handstand push-ups, or push jerks,
Right.
like, you should be able to judge a kettlebell swing. I think there's a way to. You just can't. You actually have to put less standards on it.
Mm-hmm. Bottom of the bell above your head, and make
so
a
above the
fucking
brow
head
at the
push
games
kick.
last year was good or bad? You remember that?
Yeah.
So it was
mean-
it was handle of the kettlebell had to be above the eyebrow. That was the standard.
Which
For
fine,
Helen?
right? That's one way. Maybe that was a little too much, but
I think you
That's
just
not
watch the
nothing.
hands. Your hands have to clear the height of your head.
it's like, okay, is the elbow thing a deal, or are we
Who
going
cares?
back to the
Yeah.
V-up standardization, right? It's like,
Right.
Does it get over your head? Does it?
I like them. I think you can program them in competition. I think that's also one of those things where at the proper loading, people have a harder time bastardizing as any sort of a standard. And if you just say, hey, at the bottom of the rep, like, I mean, no real standard at the bottom of the rep. I mean, what would it? I don't even know what it would be.
Just like a
Arms
hang.
arms have to be straight.
Right, arms
can't
have to be
bent.
extended at the bottom of the rep in extension, and at the top, you just watch the hands from the side, and the hands just have to go above the profile of your head. Like, I would just think the hands break the plane of your head. I don't know, maybe.
People duck their heads down. or-
But yeah, kettlebell swings, I feel like, is a huge one that people are either like, no, just do single arm kettlebell snatch or double arm kettlebell snatch
I
or
think you
kettlebell
can
clean and
do
jerk or whatever. You just don't do swing.
I love kettlebell swings just as a movement in general, but yes, that's where, I mean, think of all the things we just like threw out there of what could happen, even if you were like, oh, well, what if we do it like this? Like, yeah, but what if they do this?
I think the easiest way to standardize the kettlebell swing is the American swing, where the hip is in full extension, knees are in full extension, elbows are in full extension, and your fucking head is through at the top of your shoulder. Don't worry about the bell drooping or pointing towards the ceiling,
Yeah.
but just everything's an extension at the top.
Like a
done.
push jerk.
Right.
Or a
It's
push
literally exactly.
It is a
It's-
push jerk. It's a double knee bend to an arms extended, hips, knees extended overhead. And so if you just say, screw the bell, right? Because like we talked about knees bending on certain movements. In a
Right.
push jerk, your elbows have to be locked out.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think there is. And that's what I meant by lessening some of the strictness on what the bell is doing,
Right,
but just keep the standard of hips, knees, elbows extended, arms over your head, and call it a day. And I think they absolutely can come back. But I loop back again is that I do think the weight you pick matters. And in competition, anything a little bit heavier, whether it's weighted on a gymnastics or a heavier weight on a thruster, I think the same thing for a kettlebell swing. Like 53 is getting a little light for games level athletes. So maybe it has to be 70 or 53.
I think, dude, you can do, I mean, you could do 90, 105 pound kettlebell swings. Like I've done them with 100. Like they are for short, like sets of 10 are doable. A 70, I mean, dude, these guys can do 50 reps in a row with the 70.
If you guys saw like a 100-pound kettlebell, I think 2011 or 12, sumo deadlift high pulls came back out. Would that be fine?
Yeah,
do you think
I
a
like
sumo deadlift? Do you think a sumo deadlift high
kettlebell?
pull? Do you think a sumo deadlift high pull is better with a kettlebell than with a barbell?
I think it's better with a
100%.
kettlebell. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah,
thought that was that's
I would
such a
love-
devastating movement, and it would be really cool if it was at least 100 pounds, like 170, like with a handstand push up or like another. It could be with anything, and I think it would be nasty. But that's a movement you just don't see often, right? It's a foundational movement. It's been it's in Fight Gone Bad. It was in that 50s chipper-ish that one year with 135, but you just never see it. You see it on main side all the time. You see it in programming all the time. But if we can judge really light, fast power cleans, elbow being in front of the bar at extension, why can't we tell that the barbell is at least at the collarbone? Or at
This
least
is one of the best ideas I've ever heard.
Oh, no, because they did that at regionals in 2014.
Did they? What was the rule?
10
So
no
if-
reps? Is that what he's saying? 10 no reps allowed?
Yeah. So if you got 10, you're out. And so
That was a rule in 2014?
so this was, it was on, I don't know if it was for individuals, but it was 100% for teams that in an event, if an individual got 3 no reps in the event, you were capped right there.
Wow.
And what it did was it actually blunted the intensity of people actually doing the events and just made everybody like, oh, I don't want to get no rep on this one handstand push-up because I only have 1 life left. Like it totally ruined.
Maybe this is a better idea. And what would constitute a no rep? A failed repetition or just one that skirted the standard? That would be that, it would have to take into account for that because you can't get punished for failing.
It blunts the intensity at a massive level that takes away from the competition.
I don't think this would.
5 no reps in con 20 points.
Maybe not the right points.
But here's the thing: if I can beat you and I still did 30 no reps, why am I getting penalized for that? For being fitter than you and I moved worse. Like, do you remember it was second cut at the CrossFit Games, and I think like Matt Fraser got like 42 no reps on the push press, and he still beat everybody's ass doing it. And so I'm going to take 50 points away from him because he was so fit that even with those amount of no reps, he still beat everybody, and I'm getting penalized for being that fit because I was just trying to go that fast.
Yeah, let's hear it, Bryson and Chad. What are you gonna fucking say to that? It wasn't my idea. These guys are stupid.
But it's good. Like, I like the conversation, and I'm not going as hard as Taylor is on you, but it's like we've seen it before. Plus, this goes to dictating how a movement's done, dictating how people should compete, dictating the pace at which people should blur the line with. Right? Imagine if the finale in event 6 and semifinals was if you got 3 no reps on the lunges, then you would get capped. Then everybody like, well, I'm going to rest a minute before I pick up the dumbbell so I don't do that. Or if I do drop, I'm going to rest even more. Like, it totally kills the spirit of competition.
Yeah, and to that point, this is way more of just like a programming question and not movement selection.
Yeah.
But likewise to Jackie Pro, if they said, hey, the workout's 3 rounds for time, 10 ring muscle ups, 10 clean and jerks, the muscle ups have to be unbroken, the clean and jerks have to be touch and go. If you break, you're done. Are we then telling, like, I love Bill's argument of don't tell me how to win. Like, to my argument of saying that a box jump over step down is just a harder version of the movement, like a strict gymnastics movement just makes the movement harder. But it's like, hey, don't tell me how to win. I want to race. Do you think having unbroken requirements like that is a good change up in a competition with the best in the world? Do you think it should only be used when it's the best in the world involved? Because what it does is it does blunt intensity. It does increase risk, increase reward, but also you're not racing as much. I'm watching Taylor and saying, well, I know he can do 10 muscle ups unbroken. I'm just going to have to wait here another 30 seconds.
I think it depends on how it's applied. I wouldn't say as if you don't do it unbroken, you're out. You just have to sit there and wait till you can do it unbroken again. We did this strength event in a competition I programmed for, and we did Gwen. But we did Gwen, which is unbroken. If you guys don't know, Glenn in the chat is 15, 12, 9, unbroken clean and jerks, right? But we did it for heaviest loading, and you got 15 minutes to accomplish it. So your score was just total weight lifted, but everything had to be unbroken, just like Glenn naturally is or Gwen, did I say Glenn? I like that. I mean, it's not much different than not hitting a pace on Jackie Pro, right? So it's, and that
It would be like in
quarterfinals
quarterfinals workout 2 that Taylor did. Yeah, it would just be like them saying, hey, on the wall balls, they have to be unbroken, and then do what you want on the burpees. But you have to do 3 sets of 50 unbroken.
I think if you pick something that everybody could do, unless they screwed up something, right? It's an execution error, which is okay to program. Depends on the number of events that you have and how much of an impact it does on the end of the competition. But I like that. Like Kill Taylor today, I absolutely loved that. And that was cool to have in there as a wrinkle.
I think there are particular movements that it makes sense to add that unbroken designation or standard of how you complete it. Others, not so much. The rope climb is cool because all you're doing there is basically making it a 30-foot legless rope climb, a 20-foot legless rope climb, and then a 10-foot. I think what I like less about maybe something like a row pace is like what Bill said. It's like, don't tell me how to win. You know, I think on the rope climb thing, it's like, well, just imagine this rope was 30 feet and the next one was 20 and the next one was 10. Or, you know, I don't know. A lot of this, I think, lends itself to the creativity of the programmer and them saying, I think this looks stupid. I think this will look great.
I think I do want a thing in there would be cool, depending on how it was applied, what you used, and how it was dictating the event itself.
Right. I think
it's like the muscle up biathlon was an absolutely beautiful event.
So
great.
Cool.
I love that for sure.
So it wasn't necessarily it was like you had to do these unbroken or there's a penalty. So maybe if it's always you have to do this set unbroken. However, if you break, you have a detrimental penalty, but you don't have to start over.
Yeah, and I think something like, I think Wadapalooza did it a couple years ago, but let's just say you take the workout, Grace and then Sam. So you just go 30 clean and jerks into 30 ring muscle ups per time. That's the workout. And every break on the clean and jerk is a 3 to 5 bar facing burpee penalty. So if you choose to break, cool, you just got to do more burpees. Then when you get to the rings, every break is 3 burpee box jump over penalty or whatever you want to make it. But do you think if there's an unbroken requirement, there should be a penalty for choosing otherwise, not just you have to stand there and wait?
I know it makes sense, Bryce, and that's why I fucking said it, bro.
I like that better than, hey, if you don't do 30, you just have to sit there and wait till you can. Because then it's like, but also then you have to make sure you program it that me doing actually 3 sets of 10 with the penalty is faster or better for the strategic part of me accomplishing this task. You have to make sure that penalty is like
lofty, that people aren't going to choose it.
Yeah. That 200-meter penalty was devastating if you were to break, right? That's a minute at best that you lose on one break versus if it was like a 50-yard shuttle run. Oh, well, if I just do like 10, 8.
That'd be a really cool callback if he called that back at the games at Dickies.
Well, I want to see it with pegboards.
Yeah.
This is stupid. Sorry, Aaron. This is fucking dumb. And what's also so stupid is that they're above reproach. You can't question a judge's call. We call it in every fucking professional sport. I'm going to yell right now because I'm freaking angry. It gets me fired up. But Boz, if you're listening, I would never yell at you in person. Dave, you too. But I'm going to yell now because I'm behind a fucking camera. The fact that you can video review certain things, but not a judge's call is ridiculous. Oh my God, dude, I'm going to get a hemorrhoid.
Well,
there's. Hey, you guys keep going. I got to take Lilia to a dentist. You guys keep going. See ya.
All right. There's not a whole bunch of sports that allow for that to happen, right?
NFL?
So, yeah, but yes. I think there's instances or certain movements that have to be put in place for that. So, for example, holding calls in the NFL are not reviewable. Balls and strikes in baseball are not reviewable.
But you can ask the third base line judge.
Well, that's more of a swing, right? So if you come around in a swing, right? Not balls and strikes. So maybe there is, hey, you can video review this or you can't video. So like, I think the conversation there is warranted for sure.
100%.
But there has to be certain instances, and just like reviews in basketball, whether it's actually they do actually argue fouls, but you get 2, right? At most. There has to be a way to. So short answer, yes, but I think not everything should be up for review.
The ascent does make sense, Bryson. It's 30 feet of ascending, 20 feet of ascending, 10 feet of ascending. Shut up. Just get out of here. Shut up. Yes, I think some things 100% should be reviewable. They should at least come up with a list, start a conversation. There are things that are too hard to review in competition. That's fine. But your hand stepping on a line during a handstand walk, or your heels crossing a line in a lunge, or even the hip crease in some, like touching a beam on a rope climb. I mean, there are.
Yes, I think distances or foot on a line in a sprint course, which hurt some people back in 2019.
But I even would argue squat depth. Like if you get destroyed on a workout with 10 really heavy squats on depth, and they were all to depth, I mean, dude, it's
But like I said, it's like, okay, heavy where there's only a handful of them. Okay, but if we're talking Murph, I don't think that's okay. Right?
I agree. Murph is irrelevant, but maybe you allot a time per repetition. So if you give somebody a no rep, how long does that take them to complete the next rep? Over a certain amount, you can review it. Under a certain amount, you can't review it. It's like
we did once in the 2-2-2-3 intervals with Cara Saunders, where she had done actually 3 reps less,
and they added it
to the finish line. But what they did is they timed her previous 3 reps to that and the transition to the next square, and then took that off, which I thought is exactly what you're talking about. A great way to do that. You can do the flip side to that is like, hey, my last 2 reps of these 75s were no reps. Can we review that? Sure. But that's a Pandora's box that we're going down, or a rabbit hole. It's like, okay, well, how do you standardize time per rep? Because an air squat time per rep versus a 225-pound thruster time per rep.
Right. We'll finish with this. Bryson, you're 100% wrong. Eat fucking crow. Stop trying to argue. Goodbye.
Well, didn't you have a 5-foot line? So every descent was after the first initial 15 foot. But even then, if you jumped up, it's less than.
But still 10 feet. You still call it 10 feet each. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet, bro. Just hop off the sack.
Talk about getting in the weeds.
Yeah, come on. All right. Sick show. Thank you for coming on, Chase.
Yeah, thanks. Back to back.
All right, guys. We're out.